Hello, and welcome to another episode of Creating Cultures That Outperform. I hope you've been enjoying this series on how to increase workforce productivity. We're moving on to episode 11 here today, Execution Excellence. This series is essentially, we go through all the building blocks that are required to create incredible workforce productivity. And as we go into execution excellence today, the presumption is that you've got these other factors already taken care of so you can take advantage of and create execution excellence. If people aren't empowered, I think that was episode 8, you're not going to get great execution. If they haven't found meaning at work, if you got a downbeat vibe in the place, it's going to drag everybody down. It's going to slow down your project. If people don't know their way around the organization, go back to episode 1, strategy, planning, organization. We had a number of episodes earlier on just org design and what it means, which is kind of out there on the People Productive channel. These things have to be in place. They have to be working. So as we look at, execution excellence, there are a lot of precursors to it. And we're going to go on beyond execution in the coming episodes because there's 19 episodes in the series. And they all matter, but they are building blocks. So, if you really want to increase workforce productivity, you absolutely have to think holistically about all of this and get the different pieces in place. And you can always go back and refine them further, sure, but you've got to make sure these basic things are being done. And then you get better at each piece. So you just move up along the way and get better and better. Because when there's execution excellence, then you could deliver on your promises as a group. And, in the last episode, we talked about responsibility. It's all about, shared responsibility. That's a piece of this for sure. And we're not going to cover responsibility again because we just covered it. But remember, that shared responsibility is vital to being able to deliver on your promises, without a doubt. So welcome to this episode. I hope you're really enjoying the series. I'm Frank Wander. I'm the founder and CEO of People Productive, and I'm here with Terry Mays, an amazing certified culture engineer. So Tara, take it away. Let's get into execution excellence, some of the things that are now the building blocks of this little piece.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said these are building blocks. These are absolutely blocks. If you consider building an organization like building a building, and you have to have your foundation in place, and it has to be structurally sound before you can build completely. And the higher you want to go up, the more stable your foundation has to be. That is very true of building a productive team. If you're looking to make sure that you can execute well, you have to take the time in the earlier phases, whether it's developing all the processes and procedures, whether or not your governance is in place. Those are all dirty words. Nobody likes to think about project and program governance. Yeah. But you really do have to think through the details. You really do have to lay a good foundation, because the way or the how well your foundation is set is going to show up in execution. That's when the rubber meets the road, and when things start to show themselves to be weak or sturdy is in execution. If you're finding that your organization is not very agile, it's not able to execute in a very efficient way, the decision making is sluggish, that people don't know who to go to. They don't know who needs to make the decision. They don't know, all the people that are involved. Those are all signals that prior stages need to be readdressed. So you need to go back and address those roles and responsibilities and make sure that it's clear, that the org structure is clear. And when people are engaged for a different level of responsibility, when do you need to escalate? When do you need to, when can you make the decision yourself? All those things have to be laid out in advance. And if they're not, when you get to execution phase, then things will slow down because people don't know who is responsible for what. And so you want to take time to make sure that you're laying those foundational stages first, so that your execution can be smooth, that, you have meetings that are productive. You're not just in meetings just for the sake of having meetings, but you're listening and you're getting what the information exchanged that needs to be exchanged during meetings, that meetings are productive and meaningful. and they're not just, wastes of time, which a lot of times you feel like you're meeting about the meeting. But am I in this meeting, and is this meeting adding value? Is it something that we need to be doing, or are we just wasting time? And if it's truly a waste of time meeting, stop doing it. Like
Yeah.
literally stop doing it. Stop having those meetings that are not very productive, and make sure that if you're taking the time to bring a group of people together in a room, that it's for a very good reason, and that there's some good conversation that happens there.
Yeah. And remember, AI is not the biggest opportunity. It's got the most hype. But the fact is, in most companies, 40% of the work that people do is just lost productivity. It conforms to what we see. We see 50% a lot. You're talking about, according to PWC, a $10 trillion tax on productivity. That's how much 40% of people's time being wasted across all these companies amounts to. And it's also the reason 45% of the CEOs in this global survey believe their company won't be viable in 10 years. They just can't get enough done. So you've got to master these human factors of productivity. Like Terry said, agile. Sure, you want to put an agile process in. That's going to help speed things up, and many companies are doing that. This is the blind spot. This is what people don't do. They don't get all the human factors of productivity and how they all tie together to ultimately create an organization that can outcompete, outperform, move faster, and get more done. And so, we talk about execution. A big piece of this too is all these other little things that create organizational drag on projects, like getting a decision made. How many times have we seen people waiting around for decisions, sometimes simple ones, that hold them up because they can't work on their piece? They're kind of stuck. They're going to get it, asking for a quick decision on something. Sometimes, just having the ability to get a quick yes or no on a project is huge. And there's decisions that take more time. And that decision-making process should be laid out so that everybody working on that particular thing understands how to get a decision made. There's different levels of decisions. There may be different processes defined. That's governance. That should be built into this because that's part of the execution. And so, yes, you want an agile process, but you want effective and efficient set of execution governance things built around this so that people can actually really get their work done. All this stuff ties together. You got to get the foundational pieces done. And you got to get these mechanisms on the project working really well. It's super important.
It really is. This also, when you have execution done right, it eliminates all of that busy work.
Yeah.
It eliminates all the drag in the organization by slow decision making when people don't know how to follow the process, or if there's even a process. When you have efficient execution, people understand exactly what they need to do. They
Big
understand
time.
the timelines they need to meet. They know what they need to do, when they need to do it. They know how long it's going to take them, or at least some rough estimate, so that they're able to gauge whether or not they're going to meet their deadline. And when you have smooth execution, there's without fail, you're going to have some deadlines that are missed, but you acknowledge that early because you're aware enough of what needs to be done. So you know how long it's going to take you to get things done. And once you start to see that your schedule is slipping, you can raise your hand early. You can ask for additional support. There are a lot of things that you can do when you are doing it in advance and in an efficient way versus just waiting for the train to fall off the tracks. Once you start to see that things are going off the rails,
That's so
raise your hand and say something early. Don't just let the train go off the tracks. So, that those are all things that efficient organizations are superb at. They know how to recognize when things aren't going the way that they should, or the way that they want them to go, the way that they're planned, which we all know the best laid plans sometimes don't work so well. So
Yeah.
that's not the bad part. The best part about having agile teams is how fast you can recover. How can you move and respond to the situation that you have facing you now versus the one that you thought you would have, the
Yeah.
plan, right? So plan versus actual. How am I able to recover? How am I able to shift gears quick enough so that I can still meet the overall goal that I'm trying to accomplish? I may miss the timeline, right? So we may have a little bit of a delay, but can I actually deliver on the overall strategy or the overall deliverables that I was trying to meet?
Yeah.
So that's when you really start to show what your organization is made of, when you start seeing execution.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important, these agile teams, they can adjust course pretty quickly. And I think that is really important in terms of execution, no question about it. But so many things are sub-optimized when it comes to execution. You have these big groups of people coming together. They run horrible meetings. They waste incredible amounts of time at meetings. They don't make sure that the people who are attending are actually needed. They really have to be there, right? So who's responsible, accountable, who needs to be informed? You don't need to have the people who have to be informed at the meeting for an hour to hear a couple things that, good to know, probably important for them to know, but they didn't have to be there for an hour to do it. No agenda, so people don't know how to prepare in advance. Nobody summarizes stuff at the end of the meeting, so that people understand what was agreed to, what are the commitments. None of that's documented. You have people who don't know how to run meetings. They don't know how to stop rambling conversations that go tangentially off and take everybody off track for 20 minutes. You just wasted another 20 minutes. I think meetings are one of the most sub-optimized things in organizations. And when there's projects and roles and responsibilities aren't really super clear, bring everybody in, right? I don't know exactly who needs to know. We're going to get them all in here. Everybody needs to hear this. And this is the craziness that goes on. That's bad execution. You've
Yeah.
got to make sure that when you execute, not just make decisions well, but the meetings are run tightly. You get that minimum group of people there. People actually really attend and listen. They're not, they're not sitting there with the camera off doing something else, missing half the meeting. These fake attendees who come in, and with remote work, that's worse than ever. Or in the, years ago, you go to a real meeting, people be passing notes under the table like, oh, what an a-hole this person is, right? Stupid stuff. But now that's all happening with text in the background, and the
Yeah.
time they're texting and laughing, they're not
Yeah.
attending the meeting.
Yeah.
People have to attend the meeting, or it's not important. I think oftentimes people should say, do we have to have a meeting to decide this?
Right.
Is that even necessary? Could we avoid these meetings?
Is it necessary?
Right. I mean, and people should have the option to speak up and be candid. If you go over candor in the last, responsibility discussion, that's type of candor. Hey, we don't need to meet to do this. Let's go back and forth on email 12 times. Let's set up a little Slack group and talk about it. And we'll do it, kind of on the side over here. There's so many things you could do to improve execution and save time, be more productive. Those are just a few examples, but execution matters. You got to get that execution machine going if you want to be productive and start working all these angles. And so if you've been working on that foundation of all these things we've been talking about, boom, now you get to this, and you can start to refine this and save more time. And, if you have good, strong relationships and you've been working on those, hey, that's going to be really a support system here to make execution work better, because people can get things decided more quickly when they know one another, especially when they're friends, Tara?
That's right. That is exactly right.
Any other thoughts on this area?
I can only stress again that this execution step is really the telltale sign of how good your organization is. If you are able to execute flawlessly and have things flow through your organization in a streamlined manner, it's only because you've taken the time to build the foundation. You've laid a great foundation for your organization, and now you're seeing it come to life. So take the time, do what you need to do in order to set the proper foundation. If you need to go back and redo some things, go back and redo it, because it's going to save you time in the long run, and it's going to make your organization flow even smoother.
Yeah, it's huge. And, hopefully you've got all the right project program governance and all these other things in place, and you've spent time so things are reported accurately. We could spend more time on this, but I think, we've got most of it covered here. We're going to move on in the next episode to talk about how do you optimize now the work environment that people are in to drive, more productivity. The work environment influences human productivity greatly. And so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that in episode 12. And I hope you could join us. We're here every Wednesday, 3 o'clock Eastern time. We have a great series. Visit our YouTube channel. I mean, there's a wealth of information out there. We've been recording these episodes for years. We have the People Unproductive series. We have a People Productive series on these different human factors. We have a series on belonging. We have a series on all the different kind of psychological and social science research and experiments that we've done. Some of them are cognitive neuroscience research experiments, how they tie to productivity. Just a wealth of information. I mean, you should really subscribe to that channel. I know we've got so much out there. We need to go in and reorganize it, almost like a spring cleaning, Tara, and make it a little bit more approachable. There's just such a wealth of information out there. It's incredible.
Yes, it's some good stuff out there that's out there free of charge for you to learn as much as you want to learn.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, all those research studies and how they tie to increasing workforce productivity, I think it's pretty amazing. It's a PhD in kind of how the human factors drive workforce productivity. And remember, these are unseen. They're a blind spot. You know, everybody was taught to think, they weren't taught to feel. So this is the single biggest opportunity in any company right now, without a doubt. It is the key. So we hope to see you next week, 3 o'clock Eastern. We'll be here for episode 12, and it's going to be another good one. So I hope you could join us.